and what factors are most important to you and to your colleagues when you're thinking about selecting a new product or program to address a need.
There's 6 things, Victoria, that I would suggest that people take a look at if they're in that leadership role and having those conversations. The first is, what is the research and what is the evidence that's available around that particular product? And where was it done? Again, things tend to be pretty urban centric. And so I would want to know if this was a product that was put in place in an urban district and had urban outcomes in their evidence. So that would be something that I would be looking at. And then, is there any data that shows that this product or this service could have some positive outcomes for diverse populations? That's another thing I would want to know. As far as functionality, who is it meant to serve? We typically are targeting a particular group of students when we look at new products. And so can it be used for different subgroups? Is this a very specific product, or is it something that could be used more generally across multiple grade levels or content areas? Is there somebody that's currently using it that I could talk to, especially if they're in a rural community? I would want to know what their satisfaction level was. And then we've talked a lot about fidelity, but what does it look like? Fidelity of implementation for that particular product, what does that look like? And how then does it translate to my rural community? As far as resources, number one for me is the professional development, and Linda talked a little bit about that, as did Tom. What do teachers need to know in order to implement this program? And is it something that's going to be a heavy lift at the start? Is there ongoing professional development as we go through the use of this year over year? How often do things change, and professional development might be needed for those different tweaks during the year as well? And how does rurality impact that professional development? Do they come to me? Is it all web-based? What does that look like? Is it asynchronous? I'd want to know that. Are there consumables? And what's the replacement cycle? Because that's something I need to factor into my budget. And that's also something that teachers need to know, that they're going to be getting new content, new product as the years progress. Are the materials available in multiple languages? And that's something, because I have a diverse population that speaks multiple languages, that's something that I know is going to impact my decision. Are they in different formats? Is it paper only? Is it web-based? Is it adaptable? And is it responsive, again, to that cultural context for my diverse population? As far as need, who is the target population that we're working toward, and what are their current skill gaps? And also, what are their strengths, and how does this product intersect with those? And what are the outcomes, short and long term, for the program that we should anticipate to see? We've talked a lot about fit, as far as, does this fit in a rural setting? And so there's also facets to that. Is it aligned with my schools and my district's overall mission, vision, and goals? Is it going to move the needle for those things for my students? And how is it going to intersect with other programming that I have in place, or will it? And if it doesn't, is that important that it does? Can it be adapted? If it's not something that can be adapted to a rural setting, it's a non-starter. And so that's something that needs to have that flexibility built in. And then the last thing is capacity. Again, sustainability, which leads back to the budget conversation. I'm spending money potentially year over year to maintain a product. And so I want to know that that sustainability is something that I can build into my budget. What's the administrative burden for implementation and monitoring of this product? How will that data be collected and then monitored? Who's responsible for that? And then what's needed in terms of facilities or technology or communication systems in order for that product to work in a rural community. So those are some of the things that I'm looking at as far as feasibility of a product in my rural community. And if there are parts of a program that might be feasible, is it something that I can do an a la carte? Can I take this particular thing because this will work and put it in place with other programming that already exists? That flexibility is pretty important in terms of meeting the needs of my students and my staff, as well as my rural community.